Caleb Morris was not a man who traveled lightly. Most people packed clothes, snacks, or books when they boarded an airplane. Caleb, however, packed something unusual. He insisted on bringing his old silver toaster, the one with scratches on the side and a faint smell of burnt crumbs. To most, it looked like an ordinary kitchen appliance. To Caleb, it was his emotional support appliance. The story of how this began was simple. Years ago, during a stressful time in his life, Caleb had made himself toast every morning. The warm bread and the familiar sound of the toaster popping up comforted him. Over time, the toaster became more than a machine. It became a symbol of stability. When life spun out of control, the toaster reminded him of home. So when he booked a flight across the country to attend his cousin's wedding, Caleb decided he could not leave the toaster behind. On the morning of his flight, he carried the toaster under his arm into the bustling airport. Other travelers rolled suitcases or carried backpacks. Caleb clutched his toaster like it was a treasured pet. At the security checkpoint, the officer raised an eyebrow. "Sir, is that a toaster?" "Yes," Caleb said calmly. "It is my emotional support appliance." The officer blinked. "Your what?" "My emotional support appliance," Caleb repeated, patting the toaster affectionately. "It helps me stay calm when I travel. Some people bring small animals. Bring this toaster." The officer sighed. After a brief inspection to ensure no hidden wires or dangerous items were inside, the toaster was allowed through. Caleb beamed with pride as he hugged it close again. When boarding time came, Caleb walked down the aisle of the plane, carefully carrying the toaster as if it were made of glass. Passengers stared, whispered, and giggled. One child pointed and asked loudly, "Mommy, why is that man carrying a toaster?" The mother hushed the child, but her eyes widened with curiosity. Caleb settled into his seat, placed the toaster gently on the tray table, and buckled his own seatbelt. Flight attendant approached. "Sir, you cannot keep that toaster on the tray during takeoff. It must go under the seat or in the overhead bin." Caleb shook his head. "I am sorry, but this is not ordinary luggage. This is my emotional support appliance. It needs to stay with me." The flight attendant raised an eyebrow. "Sir, it is a toaster." "It is more than a toaster," Caleb said firmly. "It is family." The conversation drew attention from nearby passengers. Some rolled their eyes, but others smiled, entertained by the absurdity. After a short discussion, the flight attendant finally agreed to let Caleb hold the toaster on his lap as long as it remained unplugged and did not block the aisle. The plane lifted into the air, and Caleb stroked the toaster's shiny side as if it were a pet. The vibrations of the engines made the crumbs inside rattle softly. Caleb closed his eyes and imagined the comforting smell of toast. He felt calm, even happy. Halfway through the flight, turbulence shook the cabin. Nervous passengers gripped their armrests. A woman gasped and whispered that she hated flying. Caleb, noticing her fear, leaned over and said gently, "Would you like to hold the toaster for a moment? It always makes me feel safe." The woman hesitated, then chuckled and placed her hands on the toaster. To her surprise, it did distract her from the turbulence. Oh, she laughed. "This is ridiculous, but it actually helps." Soon other passengers wanted their turn. They passed the toaster around like a good luck charm. A businessman tapped it 3 times for fortune. A teenager took a selfie with it. Even the flight attendant eventually admitted, "I have been flying for 10 years. And this is the strangest thing I have ever seen." By the time the plane landed, Caleb and his toaster had become minor celebrities among the passengers. People clapped and cheered when he lifted it triumphantly into the air like a trophy. Toasty, as they had nicknamed it, had brought laughter and comfort to the entire cabin. At baggage claim, several passengers asked if they could follow Caleb on social media. He smiled modestly and replied, "Of course, but the real star is the toaster." He posed for photos, holding it proudly. When Caleb finally arrived at the wedding, he told the story of his journey. His relatives laughed until tears rolled down their faces. The toaster was placed on the gift table, decorated with a small bow, and honored as an unexpected guest of the celebration. Over time, Caleb's story spread online. Articles titled "Man Brings Toaster on Airplane as Emotional Support Appliance" appeared on news sites. Some people mocked him, while others admired his creativity. A few even confessed that they wished they had their own emotional support appliances. Caleb never minded the jokes. For him, the toaster had done its job. It had comforted him in stressful moments, turned strangers into friends, and reminded everyone that sometimes the simplest objects carry the deepest meaning. Whenever Caleb looked at his toaster on the kitchen counter, he smiled. It was not just metal, wires, and crumbs. It was a symbol of resilience and humor, a reminder that comfort can come in the most unlikely forms, and who knows? On his next trip, perhaps the toaster would once again earn its seat in the sky.